Welcome to Brave Healer Productions. We are waking the world up to what's possible for healing, one brave word at a time. All right, you guys, did you know that loneliness is as deadly as smoking? Studies show that chronic loneliness can increase the risk of premature death by 26%, making it as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Whoa. When I saw that stat, I was like, oh my goodness. So, also, did you know that despite being the most connected generation, 63% of Gen Z adults report feeling lonely on a regular basis, making them the loneliest generation alive. That comes from Cigna's loneliness index. You guys, welcome. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions. We are an award-winning publisher for holistic health, wellness, and business professionals with a mission to help the world experience what's possible. And here today to help me with that mission is Joey Natale. Welcome, Joey. What's happening?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to get into this really important discussion. You guys, Joey is the founder of Grow Our Light, a coaching business dedicated to empowering IT professionals to build confidence, develop social skills, and foster deeper personal and professional connections. And big gratitude to you. You came into our How to Be Brave project. Thank you. And you wrote this beautiful review for us that's on the back cover of How to Be Brave. I appreciate you coming into our book launch team for that and helping us with that.
You're very
Um,
welcome.
I have a lot of gratitude for people who raise their hand to help with our projects because this is big potato stuff to me. This is
Big
legacy
potatoes.
work. Yeah. So since COVID, that's getting a little kind of boring to say, but since then, we're hearing a lot about the loneliness epidemic. And
Mhm.
those stats that I talked about, um, they just bowled me over when I read them. What's the most important thing you want people to know about loneliness?
Good question. So I've definitely heard that statistic before about Gen Zers. It's really interesting. And my experience of talking and working with some Gen Zers is like they're more connected. And so they're more used to being on their phones and screens and games and things like that. And they don't, not all, of course, but because there's no such thing as blanket statements, but like struggle with the social skills. Right. So, two things come to mind is like kind of like doom scrolling. Like I dare I say use addicted, but what I prefer to use kind of more as like kind of like this overload of dopamine. This is true for my neurodivergent crowd as well, especially ADHD individuals. Those of you know who I'm talking about. Where you're just so used to receiving dopamine that it just doesn't do the same thing anymore, and you crave more of it. And the idea of maybe going to an in-person social interaction or even sometimes live Zoom interaction is terrifying because it's not as safe or you're just not used to it anymore. I've also heard this show up in, I can't speak on for women as much, but for men especially, it's just feeling more lonely romantically and things like that, which kind of goes in hand with the social skills. I was listening to a podcast, that kind of spoke about this that I'd love to share. And it said, a lot of people, and this has actually been true in my own life, now being an entrepreneur and kind of working from home and not getting out other than networking events. I've experienced this, which was surprising because I'm a very extroverted and love people. And in the podcast, they said like a lot of people feel as though if they've taken a break from socializing, whether they became a new mother or new father or just work life challenges where they have to kind of be in a routine that's not as social as once were. They feel like they have to level up their social skills before they can get out there again, whether it's dating or connecting with friends. That is not true. What is true is your ability to withstand the social awkwardness. And I love how he said that. because it's something that's always going to be there. Because what's going to naturally happen is, you're going to feel awkward and having that resilience of like, okay, this is awkward, it's fine. And then you start getting into a conversation, and maybe it's one person, but they'll make you feel welcome and maybe accepted. And maybe they won't, but you'll find something like it's a meetup group event, bright. We're all kind of on the same page versus you just go to a bar and you meet a group of people who see you every Tuesday. Unless they're really welcoming, it's kind of intimidating. So what naturally happens is you just kind of naturally get into the skills. I love his analogy that he shares that children, like you don't teach children to be social. They just are, and they're bad at it because they're kids, but they get better at it. The same is true for adults. So we have this fear of just like, oh no, I need to be or do a certain thing in social situations, especially when it comes to dating, that it holds us back, like analysis paralysis, from actually just getting out there and getting messy and saying like, "Hi, my name is," and you forget your name, right? Like those awkward, genuine, but really those are the moments that are really going to help you. Like, oh yeah, I didn't die, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I too. I love. I wrote down what you said. I love big questions for you guys. Can you withstand the social awkwardness? So that is a feeling in your body. Can you feel that and just keep on keeping on, right? Can you tolerate that feeling in your body? And oh, there's so much juiciness here about that. So what would be that I'm going to take one small step in this direction kind of step you would suggest people do if that awkward feeling paralyzes them on a regular basis?
Absolutely. So like, I'm always little hinges swing big doors, right? I'm always like, what is the 1% we can do to get closer to it? Well, first of all, like if the idea of going to an in-person, potentially social event to find either romantic connections or just more professional friends or just friends in general is like, oh no, absolutely not. Okay, well, if that's something you want to do, well, let's plan it. Can you think about it? Yeah, I can think about it. Okay, great. How about like maybe getting on Eventbrite, meetup.com or Facebook and like scheduling event out? Okay, I can do that. And then scheduling it and like planning to go. Well, if the idea of scheduling it is fine, cool, do that. And maybe in person is too frightening, so to try virtual. If you're a gamer, for example, like get on a Twitch stream and then maybe you're watching a gamer or live Twitch person be like, why don't you comment on them? I know some people who are frightened in more in-person situations and social actions, they may feel more safe online, but they're usually just watchers and they don't actually comment. So comment on something. Like if that's really paralyzing for you, like comment on somebody's page on social media. Start there, and then they might interact with you. Or, and then the next level will be like, send them a direct message about their post, right? Because you'll be seen and heard potentially. And then if you graduate from that, obviously maybe getting a Zoom call or maybe a connect on Discord or something. And then, eventually graduate to like other things. Like, and I really emphasize maybe these Eventbrite, Facebook event, and meetup.com because like pick an event where it's like not a regular weekly thing, or do a place where everybody's on the same page. Like, welcome to the icebreaker conversation. Everybody's awkward. And you're all on the same page and you feel kind of equal there, right? Versus like, welcome to the Friday night bowling club. We've been doing this for 10 years. You want to go? You're going to feel like I'm an outsider. Unless they're like the most genuine people, but you won't know until you show up, right? That comes to mind as like kind of like a stair-stepping ladder for that. I hope that made sense.
It did. I loved it. You're actually describing a couple of the men in my life that I know and love who are exactly what you're describing. And I love the steps. Try commenting first. How does that feel inside? Maybe send them a DM and say, hey, I loved that post. first of all, you're helping the person by complimenting the post or whatever it was you liked about it. So, and I love that you laid that out as a first couple of little steps. That was really brilliant. Okay, I want to I want to flip this idea a little now. So sometimes when we start to address this topic of connection, we
Mhm.
are in life with current relationships, and we may feel stuck in a relationship that isn't fulfilling, or maybe it's even toxic.
Yes.
How can we transform? How do we change that? What's the first step to building more meaningful relationships if someone's stuck in relationships that aren't working for them?
Is this like friendship and romantic or both?
Oh, I don't know what, either, both.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind is just like,
I mean, it can be either, right? Like
yeah,
we
yeah.
could be talking about a love relationship, but we could also be talking about a business partnership where it just isn't feeling good, or, it could be either.
Yeah. What comes to mind is like what you're unaware of is running your life. So if you're unaware of that you're in a toxic relationship or an unhealthy one, which basically is kind of the same thing. Someone really important in my life always said to me, like, toxic people are not toxic all the time. That's why we keep them around, right? How do you know? Well, you find yourself, I think of the 80-20 rule in this particular example. Like, ideally, no blanket statements here, but like either you're in a job that you love 80% of it, you're in a relationship you love 80% of it. You're ideally not going to like 20% of it. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll not only like 10% of it or 5%, right? Um, and then you start asking yourself the question of like, okay, I love 70% of this. I don't love 60% of this. It's danger zone when it's 50-50. It's danger zone when it's 60-40, like you like 60%, right? And that's just kind of a question you can ask yourself, journal like, how much do I love this relationship? How much am I enjoying this? And don't judge yourself. Just see what comes up. What's that first number that comes up? Right. And then if it's like, oh, I like 60% of it, or like I like 70% of it. And 70% is kind of that weird number where it's like, I could do this. But then you need to ask yourself the question of like, how impactful is that 30% that you don't like? And I'm not going to go into specifics here, but like, let's say they do or don't do something that really hurts you. And it actually is like when that happens and those moments, it's actually like, ooh, I don't like this 60%, but I like it 40% of the time. That's the kind of example where like toxic people aren't toxic all the time. Because you might be like, well, they're reliable here. And they did that thing, and that was so meaningful to me, and no one does that yet on a regular basis. Usually it's a regular basis. They do these things that are not good. And that's kind of how that's kind of the pattern people fall into. But moving forward, if you do identify that you're like kind of like three people, this is a very summarized version of like people who help you grow, people who are stagnant, and people who are energy vampires you need to get away from. Right? Speaking specifically about the energy vampire ones, even like, oh goodness, this person is like either actively dragging me down or inconsistently like like taking my energy, my peace away. I'm gonna butcher this quote, but what comes to mind is like boundaries is the distance between I can love you and love myself, right? Where is that? How are your boundaries? And boundaries are tough. They're not easy. So if you've been with a partner for 5, 10 years or a business partner for a couple years, you've already in a groove of how they treat you and how you treat them. And if you become more aware of like, this isn't serving me and I don't appreciate that because I realize I deserve a level of appreciation, love, and you try to change that, they're going to be like, who are you? What are you doing? I don't like this. Most people don't like change, especially the people they know and are around the most, right?
Yeah.
So having awareness about that and realizing like where is a healthy space for me and them. So You know, another thing comes to mind is like when you identify this, is like I heard this from a great speaker. They said like whenever you start getting on your path, maybe there's self-development or a health journey or anything really big and transformational. And let's say you go to a seminar like, oh my gosh, you're like on fire. This is so amazing. I loved it so much. And then you come back to your friends and family and you're like, who are you? What, stop all this. We don't like this. And you might be like, oh, you're right. Okay. And you might fall back into old patterns and thinking, just like, "Ugh, it's just easier, I guess." That's unhealthy. Alternatively, you might like, you know what? Screw you and you and you and you. You are not part of my tribe. You are out of my life. That's also not great, right? And the third option, which I think is the most healthy for people when they're on this journey of leveling up themselves and maybe finding new tribes that are healthy, is essentially that. Find a tribe. Who are the people that are have the vision, have the values, and are doing what you want to do or adjacent to support you? If it's like your family, you don't get to choose your family, but you do get to choose how much time you spend with them, right? Love them where they are and make their box smaller. I mean, how much time you spend with them, right? You don't need to sell them on your ideas or enroll them to your ideas, but like just love them where they are. And then if that is still not working, well, then you're really dealing with a toxic person, which is a whole other conversation
Yeah.
entirely. But having that awareness and just like finding a tribe that nourishes you and like you don't have to be like, I'm breaking up with you as a friend. You don't always have to have that conversation. Sometimes you do. And that's a boundary conversation, right? It can
Yeah.
be. Doesn't have to be breakup. But I could go on, but that's
I
what comes
know
to
this is
mind.
such a deep topic, and there's like a million ways we could move into boundaries alone. We could be here for 3 hours on it.
I'm sure.
Honestly, I want to know what is on your t-shirt right now. Like, because I can't see the whole thing. So I have to see what you have on there. I'm a life coach. Fantastic. Well, you guys, if you can't already tell that Joey is that, I don't know because he has dropped golden nuggets that I've been like journaling all the while he's been talking. Joey, I love it. I love these topics. These are game changing, life changing topics today, and I'm grateful to have these kinds of conversations. All right, I'm going to challenge you because
Challenge away.
we're going to have to kind of squeeze it, but what's your story? How did you get to here? What do you
Good
want people
question.
to know about you?
Yeah. So once upon a time, I was a nerdy boy. I'm still a nerdy boy. Honestly, nerdy video games, anime, comic books, tabletop games. Oh, I love it. Passionate about it. It's kind of what I built my identity on when I was younger. And I used to have this limiting belief is I will never be attractive and no girl will ever want to talk to me. For years, I had this belief, and that was a really low self-esteem for many reasons that we aren't going to go into today. But yeah, I had that for a while. So I had my first girlfriend and got heartbroken, and that would crush me, and I regrew as a phoenix and things like that. Right? And so,
Yes.
excuse me. And so as time moved on, I, went to school for psychology. I hit my first psychology class and I was 18. And the question our parents and our teacher always ask us is, what do you want to do with your life? Which is a terrible question to ask your teenager. Don't do that, please. And so I fell into that trap. And when I walked in my first psychology class, I'm like, this is it. I don't know what, but this is it. So I wanted to be a therapist, went down that route, did a dual major in health and wellness and psychology in undergrad. Got accepted into graduate school, turned it down. Didn't want to. I didn't want the debt for a social worker because I wanted to do therapy, and that was a long path. Got into Lenovo, an IT company. Hated it. Tried to turn a hobby building computers and stuff into a career. Hated it. And then the apocalypse happened of 2020, as I call it. And I went to one of my first seminars, Tony Robbins event. And there was a moment. And he said, you ever this feeling where you want something more in your life? And you're not really sure what that is. I'm like, yeah, that sounds familiar. He's like, you know what happens if you ignore that feeling? You wake up in 20, 30 years and be like, what the hell did I do with my life? I'm like, oh God, I feel that. Because I remember growing up, my parents would be like, oh, once you get out of school, you get a job, you'll do it for 20, 30 years. I was like, I don't want to do that. And he said, that's when your soul dies. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. He's like, it's death by a thousand cuts. I was like, oh God. So then I discovered coaching. And I was like, what is the problem that I've solved, or at least actively working on? It's like confidence. Confidence, the ability to socialize and social skills, believing in myself. Something I've always struggled with. And hell, I still do sometimes. But learning to one of my favorite speakers always said, surround yourself with people who believe in you because then you'll begin to believe in yourself.
I love that.
Right. And so, I'm on this journey too. And I like to view myself as kind of like a lighthouse, a beacon of light, hence Grower Light's the name of the company, a pillar to model, not to lean on, but so they too, clients and people around me, can become a lighthouse in their own lives. So they too can be a strong pillar, beacon of hope, and spread the light around them. Thus, the ripple of beautiful light and growth and change happens. And that's
The
how I want to impact
ripple.
the world.
Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
ripple. Oh my gosh, I am also I was influenced by a Tony Robbins event in my 20s. I am
Mhm.
now in my later 50s. And I remember breaking a board on stage with his whatever the unleash unlimited
Reach,
something like that. Probably both of
reach
those
the
words.
power within
Yes, there we go.
of you. I did the first virtual one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, okay, tell us a little bit about how you work with people. Who are your clients? What are you up to in the coaching realm?
Yeah. So, like, as my introduction said, I typically focus on IT professionals, but my nerds are my people. So, anybody who kind of fits that bill, it's very vague. Whatever you think it is, it probably counts. Most of my neurodivergent people. I am ADHD, so I know that world pretty well. And I have a lot of experience, and I've done quite a deep dive, especially this past year in the area. So that's kind of the audience I particularly work with who identify as those areas. Um, and the problem, just, sort of the same, is like if you feel stuck where you are and you feel like you want something more, and you feel like, wow, I really wish I knew how to talk to girls, or I just want more connection in my life, not necessarily just romantically. Like, let's have a conversation, right? And how we work with each other, I typically do one-on-ones for now. I am dabbling in creating more of a group coaching kind of environment. And the vision eventually is to do in-person workshops and retreats. But for now, it's kind of like group coaching and one-on-one kind of thing.
Nice. How can people connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is my new website, growerlight.com, and there'll be a link in the show notes for that. So check it out. Some resources on there, and that's the best way to connect with me and learn about
Awesome.
me more. I'm still working on the messaging on the website, but what's there is some good resources as well.
We are all forever working on the messaging on our websites.
Yes,
Joey Natale, thank you so much for what you do in the world. And
yeah, of
thank you for being here today to share it with everyone.
course. Thanks for having me.
You guys, we love the Brave Healer community. People like Joey doing really amazing things in the world. Yes. And we want you to go check them out. So please drop down into the show notes because if something you heard today gave you the goosebumps, resonated, you're like, find yourself nodding at your speaker as you're listening today. Joey is there ready, waiting to answer a question, reach out for support. Maybe
Yes,
you carry on the conversation that we started today, right? These are
sure.
these generous people who are in this community waiting to do that with you. So I can't wait for you to reach out and explore the website, see everything he is about.
Mhm.
I guess lastly today, what I want you all to remember is Your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.
Bye.